Entrepreneurship is not a science, it's a trade. I think of it as tradecraft. So we're teaching people how to do it. It's an experience thing.
Welcome to Forging the Future. And today I'd like to welcome Paul Cherukuri, Professor and VP of Innovation at Rice University. Paul, it's great to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here.
We're inside, we're beating the heat, right?
Oh, thank God. It is brutal out there.
It is brutal out there. So you were asking me earlier whether I'm from Houston. Are you from Houston?
No, not originally. It seems to be a common thread in Houston, right? There's a lot of people here who are now Houstonian, so I consider myself Houstonian. I grew up on the border of Kentucky and West Virginia. Mainly lived in mainly lived in Kentucky. Did a lot of my high schooling in West Virginia, and then did a long journey down to Texas. But I've been here since 2001, and fell in love again with Houston.
What brought you here?
I came here because I was asked to start a company. I was doing some research at the University of Kentucky, and while I was there, we spun up a new technology called Mariner, which is an acronym for a long scientific term, and I'm just going to spew it out: Magneto-Acoustic Resonance Near-Infrared Spectroscopy. It's a combination of different forms of technology so that you can do glucose monitoring. So they asked me to come up here to Texas Heart Institute, and we were spinning out the company. And we did. We did that within the first couple of years, and it was going to be used for actually military applications first. This was right after 9/11. That's when I got here. And
Call that a backronym. I'm pretty sure that was a backronym. You know what a backronym is? A backronym is you take the word, and then you figure out what it means.
It probably was. It probably was. Yeah.
Interesting glucose monitoring.
It was a glucose monitoring system. It was way too early.
Yeah,
and
you're
the company
OG
failed.
of glucose monitors.
Yeah. Well, we never got. So one of the problems with that startup, like in many startups, which is one of the things we're addressing at Rice, is that it was way too early. It was still an idea that was looking to become a new technology. It was patented well, but it wasn't actually developed. And we burned a lot of capital trying to make it. Back then it was a lot. It was only like $500K. Right?
Oh, okay.
Just to get started. But then we had founder troubles and the whole thing collapsed.
So you got a good education on what it means to be a startup and a startup founder?
Yeah, it was speed. Speed pain, right? And that's the best kind of pain to have, the fastest pain that you can have. So you learn your lesson and move on. But it was good. It was a good experience, but that's when I realized some of these issues, right? And then you see the pattern over time. That's what we're injecting into the university now. But Mariner was that first sort of step into that. And then I saw that from other technology that we would develop in the university labs. And so we're addressing those sorts of problems.
Is that when you start? I mean, you came, you did the startup, and then how did you get into Rice then at that point?
So I was at Texas Heart, and then I met Rick Smalley. Rick Smalley is, I guess, the godfather of Nanotech. And so won a Nobel Prize for the buckyball and all that. So I met him, and I was impressed, and somehow I impressed him. So that was a wonderful thing. I was actually in medical school when I came to Texas Heart. I took a leave of absence. I was in medical school in the Caribbean, actually. Took a leave of absence because right after 9/11, they needed help to do something. They wanted to create this new technology. I said, sure, I'll take a year off. And a year became 2 years. And then I met Rick just a couple of months after I landed in Houston. And I got along with him very, very well. And then he said to me, why don't you quit medical school and be a real doctor? And that got me. And so I left med school and joined Rice. Went to grad school and got a chemistry PhD. In nanotech, nanomaterials.
Well, why did he say become a real doctor and then you went back to school? How does that work?
Yeah, right. Yeah, getting a PhD was his sense of real doctor. And there's some validity in that depending on how you think, right? But the PhD is a wonderful degree in the sense that it gives you independence to solve problems, and that's what he knew that I loved doing. Plus, he was an entrepreneur, right? So he started Carbon Nanotechnologies Incorporated to make nanotubes to save the world. And it was very, very early. And unfortunately, he died early, right? He died in 2005 or so. Then the company kind of subsequently died with him. But still yet, if I still keep up with the nanotube world. Once nanotube, always nanotube, I think is the way it is. The nanotube world knows that it was early, but it was still the best way to make nanotubes. To this day, it's still the only scalable way to do it.
Really?
And now India's taken it on.
So your background is a mix of science and engineering, and you also teach at Rice. So maybe tell me a little bit about how that helps you in your current role.
Well, inside the university, this is the wonderful thing about being in a university. You can bring all your expertise or experience to bear. And the fortunate thing about coming back to the university after having been in big industry for a while is that I get to teach and I actually get to do, right? So I've been doing research. I've been doing entrepreneurship training at Rice for a good number of years with Jack Gill, who's the patron saint of entrepreneurship in Houston and starting companies. And so bringing that together is, I think, a wonderful aspect of what I've been doing for several years. And then I was asked to do this new division of the university as a innovation arm. And all that prepared me for this kind of new adventure. It's a different kind of university is what we're creating. And part of that is to really integrate all these pieces. Science, engineering, and all these sorts of disciplines are sort of artifices that we create to teach things, but it's not how you actually do things, right? They're all integrated when we're actually applying them. And so that's how we're approaching it. It's the reintegration of the pieces of Rice so that we can drive forward for impact. New in the sense that we had pockets of innovation across the university. And I like to use an equation for innovation because everybody always has a definition. I know. I have to parameterize it in some way, give it some sort of mathematical flavor. It's not just my equation. It's one that I've liberated from other people over the years. But innovation is equals invention times commercialization. So you have to have both of those aspects. And that's when we're talking about it from the university. It's both the invention as well as the commercialization of that invention. And when we say invention, it does not mean a patent. A patent is a good thing to have, but it's really a patent is a way to create a monopoly. And you don't necessarily have to have a monopoly to make a commercializable entity, but it's good to have.
I think this is one of the bigger challenges for universities, and I saw this when I was up at the Compact Lab in Boston, right? A lot of people researching, a lot of cool technology. They had things for facial recognition and smile detection and all. This is like 20 years ago, right? And they're like, we want to get this onto something. We're up there like, can we put this on a camera, right? And trying to port stuff from what they had actually done in research, but then commercialize it. And there is a big gap there where it's like, oh no, we can't use all this processing power. We can't have all this database. How do we get this to work on a cheap chip on a phone or on it, not on a phone, but on like a camera, right?
Yeah.
And they were all very hungry to get their research and their work out into the world. Like, please help us,
right.
to do that. And is that a problem that you think is getting solved now?
It is a problem we are addressing directly. One of the unique things about Rice is that, we have a lot of ideas, dreamers and thinkers, right? And then we have infrastructure that's supposed to help. But because of the small size of Rice, right, we only have 700 some odd faculty, right, tenure track faculty. Of those, there are only 250 science and engineering faculty. Of those, it's maybe 10% that would want to start a company, right? And so you're looking at 20, 25 men and women who want to do something, right, like that.
Is it like focused on like faculty starting businesses as a startup?
Is one of the big areas that hasn't been addressed as infrastructure, right? So the university is set up for the students to learn, right? The students come to learn from the core structure, which is the faculty. That's the backbone. Without the faculty, the university collapses and our universe collapses. And so we do everything based off of what the faculty need to do for the students. And so the Office of Innovation is focused on that. But what we also do inside of innovation is we're tying it directly to the students, right? So the faculty have a perspective, They need to be served in a major way. So do the undergrads and the graduates, right? All of that chained together in some meaningful way to be able to take our new ideas out into the real world is what's important. And what the Innovation Office does right now in the next year, I've been very stealthy for the last 9 months or so since I took this role, 10 months since I took the role. And it's been very quiet. I usually don't stay that quiet. And so we've been very quiet because we went into stealth mode, making sure we understood what the problem was, who the customers are, all of those things. And then we're doing things that are a little bit different, right? So those are coming out in this coming academic year. You're going to hear a lot more from the innovation side. And the reason is this is a very different way to do a university. And our president, Reggie DeRoche, who just took office and who has been the real change agent for our university, really wants to see us do more than what we've done before and more than what other universities have done before. So he's an immigrant, I'm an immigrant. There seems to be quite a few of a immigrant leadership that he's brought into the university.
Oh, that's Houston, right?
And that is Houston. And we haven't plugged in that way before, right? And that's what the ION represents for us, right? This is, I say this all the time about the ION. So Rice was the organization that started the ION, right? We didn't brand it that way. We didn't want to brand it that way. It was sort of our love letter back to the city, right? Saying that we love Houston. We are doing this for Houston. And now it's really thrived. Now we're saying, okay, here it is. And we're now going to be plugging into it. We wanted the community to embrace it, and they have. And we see that just from the thousands of people that show up there every week. It's amazing how packed it gets, right? So now we're going to plug in even further to really create jobs, to create new startups through those jobs, or through the startups, jobs through the startups. We've got to really demonstrate what we've got to do. We've got to show people. But we've got to get it out there, and got to get it out there as de-risked as possible so we can get to market.
Is stuff getting out there too late, or is it getting out there too early? Because I'm hearing both things right now.
It's a little bit of both, yeah. But for hard tech in particular, I think it's getting out there too late. It's, a lot of the investments and, sort of the impatient money from VCs have gone to soft tech, right, for many reasons, as you know, right? But how do we do hard tech in Houston in particular? And if we're going to do energy transition, which is a moral imperative, how do we fund that? How do we get that to go? That is a big focus of our university because to solve the world's problems, you have to solve the energy problem, I think, first. And to solve the energy problem, Houston's got to do it. There's no other place that can actually do that properly.
As a city, and that's going to require collaboration from many different aspects, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who's doing that coordination of the collaboration between the city and the government and the university and commercial and everything?
I think a lot of it has been self-assembled between a lot of folks, different groups. But I think the real transformative moment happened, oddly enough, from the business community, which is the GHP in particular. They started the Houston Energy Transition Initiative. And I say oddly enough because I don't think most people would think that the energy companies would disrupt themselves, right? I think the belief is that the energy companies won't ever do this. They won't ever get in the game because they're going to stick with fossil fuels. They will stick with fossil fuels as long as it is also something that can be sustainable in the sense of financial stability for a company, which is what they are required to do. They're not foolish people. They know that this is coming and the dual challenge needs to be addressed. We need to be able to make energy clean and abundant, and we also need to address climate change. So Bobby Tudor is leading that effort, and I think he's doing a remarkable job. And then GHP, I think, is going to be doing remarkable things next year. I think we're going to see a lot from that organization pulling people together.
So GHP being the Greater Houston Partnership.
Yeah.
But why are you saying that people would be surprised that it is GHP? The energy companies aren't disrupting themselves, or you think GHP is helping them disrupt themselves?
I think it's a little bit of both. But the companies have to do it, right? So it's a coalition of the willing, and they've put into that sort of effort. And I think that's what's remarkable. If you look at it, Houston is finally ready for that, right? And, there's a lot of sort of, insulting talk about fossil fuel companies. And some of it may be deserved. I'm not going to sit here and defend. But I do also think, having been in the corporate world, I was surprised. I used to work for a company that was considered big pharma, right? I use that term, but I don't even know what that means other than they make a lot of money. So they are, but they also have power, right? Money has power associated with it. The people who were working in that company were remarkable people who really wanted to make great things for people, right? And for fossil fuel, it's that sort of side. Now, I know it's dirty in the sense of it's a dirty concept, right? Black gold is not something that everybody loves, that everybody likes. Actually yellow gold more than anything else. But if you think about it, most of our world is made from fossil fuels, most of the materials. Here's another interesting thing about Houston. 60% of chemicals come from, petrochemicals certainly, but chemicals in the United States come from Houston. And we are the energy capital of the world, but 60% of chemicals. That's an amazing fact, right? And we're the number one port and all these other things.
Yeah.
You take out Houston, the United States falls. And this is a dangerous position to be in, which is why we've got to be able to create energy transition jobs and technology that we can also distribute across the country. We don't want it just for Houston, but we'll start it here and we'll teach everybody else how to do it.
Yeah, I think energy transition is super important. I do agree with you. Houston is uniquely positioned to solve that problem. We like big problems, and that's a big problem we know a lot about. But how are you helping at Rice to get like the startups, out there? How do you judge this timing? How
do you pull it off?
Yeah, exactly. You're in stealth mode. Share a little bit about what.
Yeah, I'll share a little bit. So there are a few ingredients to really doing this, right? So one of them certainly is capital. One of the things that I think Houston has had is a lot of capital, but not organized. I think we have quite a bit of money. We have to direct it in a specific way. We don't have enough venture capital that's invested in hard tech. We're changing that too. We will be getting into that game and being able to really help either new ventures move here, or we may start a fund. But either way, we're going to be helping as a university. That's one thing, capital.
Capital. I mean, that's important because I do see a big gap there even now.
You do, yeah.
Because, first of all, I agree with you. Texas has a lot of money. There's a huge amount of money here, and people are more than willing with the wildcatter spirit to throw money in a hole in the ground, and we need to direct them where else to put it. And there are other places to do that. And then there's been some initiatives to try to attract venture to Houston, but I don't really agree with some of the thesis where we're giving money to other venture firms outside and hoping they bring it back and ignoring what's going on in the emerging venture funds in the emerging markets here with fund managers and enterprise like Softic Ventures, et cetera. It's like, well, and then also we need to build that pipeline from seed to Series A, B, C, D, E, because they need to, different companies and different firms need to pick up the baton and keep that going and get that cycle all the way through and then back again.
That's right. We need to incentivize that to happen as well, and I think that's a big part of it. How do you change culture? I think you change it one person at a time, and then those people, that becomes a group. We'll start to see more of that. I think we're building upon that, right?
Mm-hmm. So venture is one piece of it, and then what is there another piece that you're in?
A big part of it is cultural change. So cultural change inside of Rice. And again, you start with one individual at a time, and you demonstrate. I think fundamentally we like to demonstrate. You do a thing, and then people will copy that thing, right? So that's how societies progress. So we're going to show how we're going to do it, and we're going to run the experiment. And I think this experiment has a strong hypothesis that will be proven. And mainly because we've learned from other people, right? So we're a little bit slow on this. The East and West Coast has already kind of been there, done that. They've set up those sorts of ecosystems. And then they have these unicorn events where they get these licensing kind of revenues, and that's ultimately what the university would love to see so that we can drive our mission forward. However, the real impact comes from faculty and students who want to really change the world. Smalley, he got me into Rice not only by saying, be a real doctor, but his slogan was be a scientist, save the world. And I was a naive guy, and I just ate it up. It was like candy to me, and I still believe that, right? It's still in my heart that I think that the things that we do can save the world. And I think Rice embodies that in many ways. And if you talk to other students at U of H, who we also work with in A&M and UT and Prairie View, all these students, they have the same sort of aspect, right? And some of the faculty have that too. So we're just calling all of us together and saying we're going to go after these big problems like energy transition.
Some universities, I think, have the wrong approach where they're saying, well, we'll license it, but we get 80% of the stock or the business or whatever, right? And it's just, I don't know. To me, it's obvious that that's a company killer kind of mentality. Like you're not going to get anything out there if that's going to be your approach.
Yeah.
And have some fair licensing approach, right? So,
yeah, I mean, we're flipping the script on that. That's just nonsense, and it's nonsense because it is the way the university revenue system is set up, incentivized that process. We're not doing it that way. We're going to incentivize the creators, right? The people who are doing it, and we're going to give back money to them as inventors, and then on top of that, we're not going to choke off the startups. Because of the ion, we're taking root in the ion, right? So this organization that we've named the Nexus is this convergence point inside the ion where we're going to have our startups and we're going to be giving it to them for a few years for free so that they can get up and running. You want the baby to be born while it's incubating, and I think that's the thing that we're doing here. And then the startup can graduate, right? And then they can move into larger facilities. One of the startups that came out of Rice is Syzygy, right? It's one of the top energy companies.
Syzygy
Plasmonics, yeah. So that's spun out of Rice.
I mean, think about energy transition, right? I mean, they're like...
Syzygy is doing remarkable things, and we're going to have even more companies that are coming out. We have some special things coming out soon that I think will really demonstrate to people that we're serious about this.
So do you see Rice playing like almost like an incubator role where you're providing like the facility, you're providing some funding, you're providing mentorship, but then also maybe are you trying to pull in other organizations in Houston to do that?
Yeah, all of it. All right, so bring everything to bear inside the ion in particular because we have space in the ion, we can do it in the ion. And because you can put capital and all of those adjacent folks together, that mix actually the collision does happen and help. One of the things about Houston, because of our large size, right, we don't have concentrators. I think the ion represents that. It helps people come together in a different way, right? And it's remarkable to me. I'll tell you this. I sound like I'm a big supporter of the ion and I bought the party line or something. But here's the thing. I was totally skeptical, if not vehemently opposed to the ion years ago.
Okay.
So I was on campus, right? And I was talking about how this is not doing anything for anybody else, and it's a real estate play, blah 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 blah. Right? All the narrative. And then when you're there, and then you see all these people coming, and you meet people that you never ran into, and these random collisions are happening. I think Jan Odegaard has done a remarkable job. I think the team has done a remarkable job through the pandemic, right? And now you see all these people just showing up at the ion. There's a buzz. Famous people have walked through the ion that we've never publicized. That famous CEOs and entrepreneurs that you would name brand people who've quietly come visited because they know something's happening in Houston.
That is one change. I mean, being an entrepreneur for 35 years and people would say, you must know a lot of other startup founders. And I'm like, no, I don't even know where to find them.
Right.
I've got my head down working, but on top of that, there's nowhere to go.
Right.
And Ion is one of those places now, and there's a few more like that.
There's a few more. Canon's great. I'll tell you, Canon's great.
Canon, Sesh co-working, different places that people can go, have the collisions, learn.
TMC Innovation is great. I think we have this, right? These sort of collective pockets, I think, have been helping Houston quite a bit. One of the things I do love about Houston is we don't have zoning. I actually love this.
I love that too because it means people see opportunity.
I mean, like Rice. Rice is a tiny university, right, in the sense of size, but that actually lends to why it's so good. We are only a highly kind of sort of intellectual special forces in some way, right? It's a really refined group in the middle of this massive city we call Houston, largest city in Texas, and it also is an economic powerhouse of research. If you look at it with the small number of people, how much research do we do? It's amazing, right? Nanotech was born there. Synthetic biology. A lot of wireless technology came out of Rice. We had 5G before anybody else in the country. We built those towers, right? The technology that's in your phones, a lot of it's come from Rice. We don't talk about it. Why? We're freaking humble Houston, right? It's a part of it. This is a Southern humility. It's a Houston thing. Yeah, we did that. Sure did. We don't talk about it. Let's go have a beer. That's Houston, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you get past that? Because everybody else just, pounds their chest and talking about how they're doing everything. We actually do it and we don't tell anybody. And that's a little bit of Rice. And I think that we're going to have to come out and tell people because we want more people to come here so they can do that. And that's one of the things Reggie has really done. He wants us to grow the opportunities for other people. If you're good, if you strive for excellence, come to Rice. That's Reggie's mantra. That is what we're hoping we're going to create with innovation. We're going to show people that this can be done, or it's going to be done here. It's a fun time.
Well, I mean, coupled with the fact that, we've got the #1 graduate entrepreneurship program at Rice, the #1 undergraduate entrepreneurship at U of H.
At U of H.
And I heard there's like a #1, I don't know if it's a high school entrepreneurship program. There's something below that we have.
I had heard that, but I don't know.
I don't know what it is yet.
I don't know what it is yet. I thought it was at like a community college or something.
Could
too.
be.
Yeah, it was interesting. Or a community, I don't know what it was. It was just something odd. One thing I want to make sure is that I want people to know that we want talent wherever it is to come. We need it. To solve these sorts of problems, we've got to be able to find talent everywhere. And it's not just going to be from an admissions test. And it's not going to just be from the best students in the university.
You want them to come to Rice, or you want to come to like some other program? Or
Come to Rice.
Come to Rice. Okay.
We are ready to receive new ideas that can really help people.
As a graduate student, as an undergrad, both? Does it matter?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. We need the ideas. We're canvassing for brilliant people. If you're brilliant, we want to know you.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's not a standardized test that I'll always tell you. I was a terrible student, absolutely horrible, for many different reasons, and everybody has those, right? So we're looking for brilliant minds and passionate people who are going to solve problems. And we're going to provide the infrastructure inside of Rice to do that. We're doing that right now. People are going to see what those look like very soon. And then we're just going to go. It's go time for this year.
These entrepreneurship programs didn't exist when I was going to college.
Yeah, they're new.
I would love to have gone.
They're new. And entrepreneurship is not a science, it's a trade. I think of it as tradecraft. So we're teaching people how to do it. It's an experience thing. And so bringing that out and integrating it into our academic sort of structures is a big part of it. Mm-hmm. But it's very different than the standard sort of, book learning, as we used to say, and doing it that way. You've got to be physical with this. That's why, after the pandemic, so many of the students wanted to come back. They wanted to be in person. We didn't have a problem with people wanting to, just to stay remote. Some people had to be, but the majority of students really wanted to be on campus and have that physical interaction. And we still see that. So I think a lot of people, the naysayers, were saying, oh, this is the death of higher ed, right? That everything's going to be digital, all this stuff. There is a human factor that hasn't been caught in the virtual world yet. And I think this is what we're still seeing. But we might get there someday. But we're not there yet.
Virtual reality, maybe, I don't know.
I mean, reality is rough enough. If you virtualize it, I don't know what's going to happen. But I think there is something about human interaction. That's one of the reasons ION's been successful. You would have thought that the pandemic would have killed the ION, but it didn't. If anything, it just kind of built up frustration, and everybody's just floodgates opened up. Now people are just coming in droves.
Well, speaking of hard tech and changing the world, as an engineer, I've got my Tesla socks on today. I know you're a Tesla fan.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I do not know this story about Teslaphoresis.
Teslaphoresis, yeah.
Teslaphoresis.
It just rolls.
Yeah, right. What is Teslaphoresis?
Teslaphoresis was a crazy thing that I dreamed up when I was in the company. And when I came back to Rice, I made it happen. And it was this odd idea that I had, and it seemed to work. So we published a paper on it. It's a new technique to be able to assemble materials. And we're using it now in another project that I have, which is making a new helmet. So you can think of it as using a Tesla coil. So I was glad to see your socks. Using a Tesla coil to remotely move materials. So it's sort of tractor beamish in that sense. A tractor beam is not a crazy notion. It's actually a physical phenomena. I just scaled it up so that
Gene Roddenberry didn't make it up for
he
Star
didn't
Trek.
make that part up. No, the rest of it, I don't know. But no,
You're
yeah,
a Trekkie, right?
I am very
And
much.
I'm a little jealous because you actually met William Shatner.
Yeah, it was
so,
great.
um,
He didn't say anything. He didn't talk to us.
Wow.
But we took a picture with him. So we have a family portrait. Me and my boys and my wife standing there next to William Shatner, who was sitting down. And we just did this, quick thing. I stood right next to James Tiberius himself.
Nice.
Right there.
James T. Kirk.
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't read his latest book, it's called Boldly Go.
Yeah.
He's 93 years old, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he's up for anything. You want to dive with the sharks? Great. You want to go and get on a rocket and go to space? He's done it.
Yeah,
he's
he's
like
that
93.
guy.
But I found the book very entrepreneurial. So if you're a Shatner fan and you're obviously an entrepreneurial fan,
Right.
you should read the book. I found it there's a lot of parallels, very inspiring. Well, you mentioned you don't have any socks, but I got you some swag, but one of the swags are some
really?
nice rocket socks.
Oh,
so, it
cool.
is Houston, right?
That is awesome.
And then a nice other gift bag
Thank
of
you
some
so
other
much.
swag. Wear it proudly. But thanks for being on the podcast.
this is
Super
wonderful.
interesting. Let us know how we can help with Rice.
will.
We want to collaborate. If there's a place for us there to help in whatever way.
Would love to. This actually helps. I think we need to get the word out of everything we're doing in Houston and broadly.
Yeah.
And so this is wonderful that you're doing this.
Yeah, well, thanks for
Thanks
being
for
on.
the invitation. This has been fun.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks for coming.
Thank you.